Hello, everyone. Uh, the the kind of one-on-one interviews that I used to do, I haven't been doing them as much recently, but I felt that this was too important not to do. Recently, a group of women were very violently attacked in Portland, Oregon, uh, and I haven't really seen much conversation about it outside of the Twitter accounts of the people involved and Kara Dansky, who's been covering it brilliantly as always. Um, so I just thought I'd bring them in and take everyone through what happened and what can happen when the police don't take seriously the violence that trans rights activists are uh, too happy to engage in against women. So here we are. Today I'll be speaking to Irene Lawrence. Hello, Irene.
Hi.
And Lierre Keith, an old friend of the show.
Hi,
And
Graham.
hello there. How are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you. Good to see you both. Um, let's start at the very beginning because I think that's always the easiest way to do things. And can I ask what exactly was the occasion that you were trying to get through unmolested and unable to?
So this was part of WDI USA's gender abolition tour. And so this started in January of this year. We had an event in Oakland, California. We had an event in Florida in March, an event in New York City for Mother's Day, where we were in front of the UN talking about the rights of mothers and motherhood being for females. An event in Philadelphia in July, where we talked specifically about freedom of speech. We had an event focused on lesbians in San Francisco, which was tied to WGI USA's annual convention. And then finally, we had our event in Portland on November 19th, which was focusing on violence against women. So
it was actually about violence against women.
Right.
Yes. The theme was protecting women and children.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
they brought it.
That's part of the whole tour that WGI USA was planning, and we wanted to bring attention to not only gender identity per se, but all these issues that radical feminists care about, that we have been hindered from speaking about because of this, because of these threats of Antifa violence. And so all of these are nonviolent direct actions. We train women in tactics of nonviolence and are very very strict in our behavior. That's the behavior that we will maintain throughout all these actions. But each one had a theme. So yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Can I ask Irene? First of all, sorry, what does WDI stand for in this case?
We're the U.S. chapter of Women's Declaration International.
Right. Okay. And it's like this is the. I don't think I was too aware of the previous occasions that you did, which is actually a good thing, because it sounds to me like they passed without incident. Or were you kind of plagued by these kinds of incidents all along the way to Portland?
They kind of gathered steam as we went on. So we only got a handful of harassers in New York City, but no true violence there.
Right.
In Philadelphia and San Francisco, there was definitely a mob of people, mostly men, who came out to yell and scream at us and have their bullhorns and all that. But in Philadelphia and San Francisco, there were police there, protecting us. But I want to make it clear we don't we're not opposed to engaging with police, for sure. But we don't think that we should need any armed people at all, police or otherwise, for us to be able to speak.
Having said that, there's a basic level of protection that I feel like you should be entitled to. Were the previous cities leading up to Portland, did they take the threat seriously from Antifa and groups like that, or did they leave you to your own devices?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Well, Oakland was the first one,
Yeah.
and didn't have any. Nobody cared that we were going to be there, except of course Trantifa came. So there is footage of that, Graham, and anyone listening, if you want to see that footage, it's really quite astounding because here we are, a group of 10 women holding a banner, in silent vigil about a woman who was two women who were murdered, a lesbian couple were murdered in Oakland, California, and their teenage son. And this man has a special woman identity, and he's claiming that he belongs in the women prison. So anyway,
of course, this is
Dana
Mitch.
Rivers.
This is Dana Rivers, right?
Going on for years, and so finally the trial was winding up. So we went and stood in vigil, and of course Trantifa came and attacked us. So we have it's horrible, but it's very good footage in that regard. You can see what they did. They hit us with their bicycles, they hit us with their umbrellas, they threw stuff at our heads, into our faces, they stole our banner, and then they ran away like cowards. And of course they're all masked, and we are not. We are people who are perfectly happy to be who we are and discuss what we want to discuss and hold the ideas that we hold. This is a democracy. We should be allowed to do this. So that was the first one that we did. That was in January, and it was what it was. And there's the interesting part about that one. If you watch the footage, there's a woman there. It's just a random civilian walking by, and she sees our banners and she wants to talk. And so we are explaining to her what's going on. That this man's in the woman's prison, and she takes his side. So she's arguing from his perspective about why it's so dangerous for him and care about this. And I was like, yeah. And then out of nowhere, this group of men come and they just assault us and hurt us and steal our stuff. And you see her on the side. She's like, what is happening here? This is terrible. I'm not here for this. Oh my. And then, you have First Amendment rights, free speech. I'm like, you got it. So she takes him right on. That's the point.
No, that's great.
We could not have paid this woman to understand this more quickly. Like, she got it immediately. Like, wow, this is what you're up against.
Yeah.
So she's immediately on our side, and she has this beautiful dog and all this. It's the whole thing is just amazing. But anyway, I'm just if people want to see that footage, we've got it up on different.
Maybe you could send me an email with all the links to anything you want, and I'll place it under this video. So on the day, where was the thing to be held in Portland?
So we had reserved a room in the library, in a residential neighborhood in Portland, which any member of the public can do. And we were working in conjunction with several women who live in Portland, who are a part of radical feminist groups in Portland. So we had this room reserved. We had an Airbnb for the whole weekend where the training was going to take place. And there were numerous online threats that were escalating, mostly about food being thrown at us. And the county security were discussing these threats with us, and they seemed to understand the risks, but they didn't seem terribly alarmed. And police were notified, and we decided to move forward with the event. Then the night before, our Airbnb was vandalized, and several participants had our tires slashed. And then they decided they were going to close the library but still hold our event. And then there are so many twists and turns. We don't need to get into every single detail, but
we should mention the gun.
There was a gun threat.
There was a legitimate threat of gun violence against us. It was so bad that the mandated reporter called the security and said, vulnerable young man in my care has threatened that he's bringing a gun and he's going to use it. And you need to know this because he's legally required to tell people if he is aware of these threats. So the security came to us and said, we just want you to know this has escalated now. Do you still want to hold your event? And we said, yes, we are not going to give in to male violence. But we had to tell everybody. We wanted to make sure that anybody who might be coming to this event heard about it. So we did our best to put out a press release explaining that there was now this quite real threat of gun violence as well as everything else, and that women had to make their own decisions about whether they wanted to come or not, because that does up the ante quite a bit. And Oregon is an open carry state, so he's allowed to have a gun.
Yeah. Oregon is the home also of a lot of kind of survivalists and stuff like that, isn't it? It's a kind of a
Odd mix, because the rural areas are more like that, and then of course, Portland is just
It's
the
like
hellmouth for like the woke stuff. So it's like both going on at once in one state. Yeah.
right, right. And so on the day, obviously you'd been warned about this gun threat and so on. By the way, can I, before we go on, well done on your bravery. It's bad enough over here. I've seen what it's like when these activists kettle women in, and how frightening it is. So to add firearms to that mix, I cannot tell you how much I admire your bravery. So well done to you and everyone else who was there. But on the day, what was the first sign that you weren't going to be able to proceed as to have a normal event?
Well, so they were gathering around the library. And ultimately the county security told us that they were afraid for the safety of library staff and nearby patrons of coffee shops and things, and people living above the library. And so they basically said, we don't want to tell you to cancel it, but it's not, we can't keep you safe. And as soon as we open the doors, they're going to come in, and we can't guarantee anything. So they wanted us to consider canceling, and we decided in just minutes that we wanted to continue with the event. And so we stood just a couple blocks outside the library. Well, let me back up. So the county security assured us that they would be nearby, and that they would have the sergeant on speed dial to call as soon as any assaults took place, which we knew they would immediately. So
Sorry, can I ask, is sergeant a police title in this sense, or is it a security person?
The sergeant who's in charge of that police, because it's in sort of districts, so that one.
Okay.
And the police were already there. We were told that they were already on site around the library, because there was this huge mob of them that was just circling the building and screaming and yelling. And the library staff had not been able to come in without incident, it had been very hard to get them in without being assaulted by this Antifa mob. I don't know who in their right mind thinks it's okay to just assault librarians.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like, how psycho do these people have to get before everyone's willing to face this?
Yeah.
But my mother was a librarian, so maybe I'm taking this a little too personally. But I just think, like, libraries, is there anything more essential to a functioning democracy? We have to have information. We have to have the place where ideas are distributed. We have to have access to these things. And in America, that usually includes meeting rooms where you can talk, where you can have these kinds of events. And this is absolutely sacrosanct. And to have people on the left, especially, doing things like attacking libraries and like,
they had vandalized the library beforehand. Yeah.
You what? Sorry.
They had vandalized the library the night before.
Did they? What? They broke in?
Yeah, there was a glass door. They broke the glass, and then they spray painted all over. So they assaulted the library as well.
So one would imagine that the police presence would be kind of, moderately significant. Yeah.
Right.
So where were the police while all this was going on?
We never saw any of them.
You never saw a single policeman?
No.
A single one.
Even after library staff had been assaulted?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they said, we've got him on speed dial, so the moment that the trouble starts, they'll be there. I was like, all right, maybe they will, maybe they won't. It's Portland. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we went ahead. I mean, we went ahead with, decided to do the event, and we stood on this corner, like near the library. And we could hear them. We could hear them coming, but we stood on this corner, and we had our banner, the Women Equals Adult Human Female banner. And
so this was taking place outside the library?
About a block down.
Yeah, about a block.
Why was it so far away?
Well, the thing is, especially for me, after we were told that here's the library, but there's stories above it. And that's senior housing up there. These are vulnerable old people living, in rent-reduced housing above this building. And also there's a cafe attached. So there's all these people like with baby strollers and stuff hanging out, just reading the paper and eating bagels or whatever on their Saturday morning, getting ready to go to the library. And we didn't want those people to get hurt. Like, we signed up for this. We know what's coming. But here's all these people. And it was a hard decision to make. I was like, because I don't want to see the territory of libraries, but I also don't want old people to get punched and kicked and knocked over and God knows what. So we just felt like the public wasn't prepared for this, that we were, but they were not.
Yeah,
And so
sure.
our decision was, we're going to go ahead with our event. We are not backing down in the face of this violence, but we want to draw it away from the library so that these vulnerable people are not affected by our decision to hold a controversial event, which we are allowed to do.
Yeah.
But we didn't want to hurt them.
In
And
a
we were worried about the staff. Like, why is the library staff about to get assaulted? So we decided we're just going to have it a block up. So we got out of our transportation, out of our van, and we picked a corner right there. We could see down the street where the library was. We certainly hear them. And then we set up there with our banner. So go ahead, Irene.
Yeah, so we set up, we got out our banner, we heard them coming and we could see them. And Kara Dansky, the WDI USA president, gave her introduction, and Lierre had the first speech, and she got like halfway through her speech. And then they just started, they were yelling at us. They had like heavy cans of liquid that they were throwing at us. And they had this big canister of pepper spray, and they pepper sprayed several of us very badly, including Lierre was very badly injured by the pepper spray.
Yeah, we have one image here of Melinda, who was
Melinda,
sprayed in the face by it.
Yeah.
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 It's and of course there were also bruises of people who were there, had heavy cans thrown at them and stuff like this. There are more pictures, but I don't have them. Handy. Yeah. Sorry, let me just. Yeah, sorry. Whenever I share something, then I have to spend 5 minutes trying.
Getting back to where you were.
Yeah, exactly.
They also threw
Sorry.
firecrackers at us. I've never had firecrackers thrown at me before, so that was new. And I just need to make sure everybody understands this. You throw firecrackers at people, you can blind them, you
Yeah.
can destroy their hearing, they can be deaf forever. You can lose a finger from firecrackers. You can also catch on fire from firecrackers.
Yeah.
So this is the level of assault that a group of men are committing against a small group of 10, mostly middle-aged women who simply want to talk about violence against women.
That actually reminds me. How many people are we talking about who were on the other side? There were 10 of you. How many were?
40? I don't know.
Yeah,
it happened so fast. It was just this mob of them screaming down the street at us. And they were ready. That's the thing. Like, in order for humans to do violence against humans, there's a process that you have to go through, because you have to get over your own inhibitions to hurting other humans. So it usually starts with the screaming and the yelling, and it's dehumanizing names. So the two things they always call us are Nazi and TERF, of course, because that's how they monster us. That's how they utter us. Yeah, fascist, all that. So it means you're not human, and that's in preparation so that we can do more things to you. And then it starts with the throwing of the objects, because it's further away. The closer you are, the harder it is to do violence to people. So they're going to throw the objects first, and then they're on you if they're going to do that. And this was like all in an instant. Like, there was no 5-minute prep where they had been circling that library for 2 hours. Essentially,
they've been gearing themselves up. So
they were ready. They were in the red mist. They were ready.
Yeah.
There was no hesitation. They were just boom, all in. So here come the firecrackers. Here come the cans. The guy with the canister just right in our faces with the spray. The pain was extraordinary. Yeah. I have never. I mean, I've certainly been through my pepper spray things, but this was like nothing I've ever experienced, because it was just full on, that nozzle right in my face. The pain was like, I almost vomited. It was so bad. It sounds like
it couldn't have taken that long. From the moment they arrived in your orbit to the moment where you guys had to escape. I presume this was just a matter of 5 or 6 minutes of violence, was it, or even fewer?
It's hard for me to know, because from the moment that pain hit, you're like in a different world. And I just know I was curled up on the ground with my hands on my eyes, and they're like pounding on me. And then there was a Whole Foods, like the natural food store, came out in the street. I heard him. He came out in the street, and he started trying to stop them. And he's just one guy, but he's like, "What are you doing? This is terrible." And they're like, they're trying to kill our friends. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
what? Yeah, right. Okay, sure. I'm gonna like they live in this completely different world where they honestly believe stuff like this.
Mm,
Anyway, the guy says, "Look, I don't care about I don't care. I'm a person who doesn't want to see violence, and you are doing terrible things. What are you doing? Stop, stop. I don't want to see this."
mm,
And he broke their narrative. Like it's
mm,
like you could feel like they got back into their frontal lobes and out of their amygdalas, and they
mm,
couldn't do it. So,
mm,
like, once he intervened, it was nowhere near as bad from that point forward. Like, they still hounded us and screamed at us, but the real, like, pounding on me stuff stopped.
yeah.
Um, and I don't know what happened to him because, like, I couldn't see, but I didn't hear his voice after. I don't know whether he just backed up. I don't know whether they did something to him. I have no idea.
Mm,
So he was gone, and then it was just chaos, like, where you could hear women kind of shrieking and everything was
Yeah, we were
hurting. And
running towards. Well, y'all were running into the Whole Foods to deal with the pepper spray, and
mm.
yeah, we got separated a little bit, but we found long story short, we found each other again, and were able to communicate with the vans that we had set up, and we got into them.
There was an
It
old
was
woman who was just walking back from the bank machine with her weekly cash, nothing to do with us, just walking down the street, and they assaulted her. They knocked her to the ground.
Yeah.
And I just want everybody to think about this one more time. Like, what kind of a movement is this where 20-year-old men are assaulting like 75-year-old women on the street? Do you not
not
understand
even
that, like,
have anything to do with the event. Yeah,
breaking a hip is one of the most common causes of death for old people?
Mm,
They
mm.
could have broken her bones.
Yeah,
So some of
yeah,
our women stood around her and helped her and got her up, and then there were really nice people in a local house just there on the street who offered them sanctuary. So they all escaped inside the house to make sure that this old woman hadn't in fact broken any bones. And they stayed there for a little bit just to make sure that everybody was safe. But
yeah,
this is just a level of sadistic misogyny that's it's almost unthinkable to me that this is where the left has gone.
yeah.
That's what I can't bear about
and a
this.
lot of people in Portland are sick of it too. I mean, that was clear from our interactions with people. I mean, some were really, trying to be helpful and just had no patience for this kind of mob violence either.
Yeah, yeah. So, presumably, once you got to some relative safety, did you all stay in the Whole Foods, for a bit, or what did you do to get to somewhere safe?
Yeah, so they followed us into the Whole Foods. A couple of them did,
Mm,
and the Whole Foods manager was not having it. didn't want them in there, but yeah, I mean, they continued to follow us as we were as Lierre and others were dealing with the pepper spray situation, and we eventually just speed walked there and into the waiting van that was waiting to grab us. So there was a lot of coordination, and yeah, we had to.
Did you have a van? Did you have a van because you thought that this type of thing might happen? Did you like have a getaway planned?
Yeah, that was planned, and that plan kept changing, but we did have friends offsite who we were communicating with as we could to let them know what happened.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to block an arsehole. Sorry, that's done. So again, I can only I'm in awe of your bravery. In going into this, knowing what was possible. So where were the cops?
Well, the cops did eventually show up at the Airbnb hours later.
They
To take
didn't come to this to the Whole Foods.
Nope,
Nope.
nope.
There was not a single sign of a single cop. We know they were at the library. Why they did not go that single block down the street, no idea what happened. We've been told nothing about.
Do you think that, like, I have a theory that sometimes police are trying to use Antifa and these types of groups as sort of kind of almost like police dogs to keep women from discussing their rights, to keep women from gathering in things like this, and so they kind of allow these activists to do what they want to people. Did you get a sense of that? Did you get a sense that they were being let off the leash deliberately?
I did not.
This might be too
I didn't get
paranoid
that sense.
for you guys. This might be too much paranoid thinking for you guys. It's just a theory that I've had for a while about certain ways they deal with this. Yeah, go on, Lierre.
Well, the police that we did talk to later, they came to the house and took our statements, and then some of us called them later on the phone and gave statements over the phone, or added more information. And they were all really, in my experience with them, they were really nice.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
the guy that I talked to was clearly really sorry that this had happened to us.
Hmm.
So I don't know. What I do know in places like Portland is that, there had been that whole movement to like defund the police, and they're
Hmm.
worn out, and they're very, very tired of,
Sure.
the situation that they've been placed in, which is they're completely underfunded now. Nothing they do is ever right. You live in a city like Portland, everybody hates you,
Yeah.
and they're sick of it. And so I think more likely is just, look, you leftists wanted this, you're gonna get it now. This is
Hmm.
what happens when we don't have enough power, to do that. We don't have enough staff to do. I mean, we
Hmm.
could not get a live person on the phone
Hmm.
to talk about what had happened with our tires the night before. We're like, we need to report this. This is vandalism and it's a threat. Like, this is part of a pattern here over the last week of an escalating threat against us. This isn't just an isolated vandalism. We
Yeah.
know this is targeted, and they're going to come back tonight. So we need to talk to a person. And there is literally no way to talk to a person. There's just not enough staff. And so
Yeah.
I think they're utterly demoralized. And so, I mean, I don't know. It could just be that they don't have enough people. I mean,
Right.
there's nothing political about it at all. I don't know that we're ever going to know.
Yeah.
So
I
we
felt
just,
kind of, yeah.
It sounds more likely in the particular case of Portland that your version is right, Lierre, that it's just overstretched, and also it does always seem like these things always seem to take police by surprise. They have no idea of the levels of violence that trans rights activists are prepared to engage in.
Yeah. Well, and I felt a little bit bad as speaking as an individual, not a WGI per se. I felt a little bit bad for the individual police officers who I agree probably were, I know, are very overstretched
Hmm.
in their roles. I have less and less sympathy as you get higher up the chain, and just talking more generally in society. I don't have much sympathy for for all the like institutional leaders who actually could be, at saying something about this and acknowledging acknowledging the harms to women and girls that result from this ideology, and they just even the most basic statements of concern or understanding of like and any nuance um, to show concern um, for the other side, the feminist concern, even if you don't call it that, it gets less and less justified as you get higher.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen some great examples of policing in at Let Women Speak events over here. Belfast was excellent. Dublin police were excellent. Police in London, after initially not being so great, have really stepped it up. Would I know that there's often a lot of coordination done with police forces in over here by the Let Women Speak stewards. Is that something that you have been doing or will be doing more of, or what is like where do you guys go next? Like, are you going to keep doing events? Are you yeah, go on. Tell me
Yeah, so
what's next.
we don't have the list of events settled yet, but we definitely are going to be doing more events in 2024.
Great.
And let me say, WDI is a big supporter of Let Women Speak. We very much admire what Posey Parker is doing with those. But we're not trying to have events with, a wall of men protecting us. We're not trying to stay safe at these events. Our main goal is to show the violence that these activists, mostly men, want to inflict on us, and so our goal is not to stay safe.
Jesus. Right, right. Well, I hope I don't know. That sounds just I can't get over that. I find that extraordinary. I'm just I can't believe it's come to this that you have to actually use yourselves.
Well, it has, and you have to remember, the numbers of people throughout history who have had to do this. Nonviolent direct action is an incredibly elegant political technique for people who don't have a lot of power, but it does require sometimes immense sacrifice from the participants. So that's why we have a training beforehand. We don't want anybody coming into this who doesn't realize how dangerous it might get. And we want everybody to have made that decision on her own, that she is prepared to face this down and potentially get hurt. And there's women who come to the training and decide not to go ahead, and that's fine. In fact, there are women who come to the training who know right away that they're not going to do it, but they want to understand what we're doing. And they want political background, and they want to be able to, at least engage with these ideas. And I am all for that. I want anybody who's interested in this to learn about it, because people have been using this really successfully. Honestly, my whole lifetime, millions of people have used nonviolence, to bring down dictators, to collapse empires, to win their freedom, to stop civil wars, to end segregation, to win all kinds of civil and human rights around the globe. And it's an amazing thing once you learn about it. So we're trying to apply it to the situation. We don't necessarily feel like we have all that much choice, because, here we are in America. Like, the First Amendment to our Constitution says that we have a right to speak in public, we have a right to assemble in public, we have a right to air our grievances to our government. This is so central to, our country and our national character. It's been called our civic religion. Okay. So we think when we go out there that we have a right to simply have an event at a library or stand on that street corner and give our little speeches. And we should have that right. This is so basic to a functioning democracy, and we don't. And that's the problem. So, there's one of two things you can do at that point. And one is to say, all right, we're going to make this event as safe as possible so that we still have that right. And that is great. And I hope that women continue to do that. And that is using, a kind of a persuasion. You're trying to persuade the public by doing that. And you have a right to do those things. And you absolutely do. So I completely 100% support anybody who's doing that. But we're doing something slightly different, which is we want to make the violence visible, because that's how nonviolent direct action works. And the fulcrum is always that nonviolent discipline, that you have to hold the discipline to make it clear. So any, social system that's based on hierarchy, whether it's economic, whether it's racial, whatever it is always, the backdrop is always violence. That's what keeps it in place. And you don't necessarily see it day to day, but it's there. And when you strip the sanctity of that, of the just daily distance away, that's what's laid bare, is that violence. So when you do that direct confrontation, you're not creating violence. It's there. You're just showing people. But it means you have to be willing to take that risk. And I just come back to the suffragettes being force-fed. That absolutely laid bare male violence organized through the state. That's what that was. And it meant that those women had to keep going back to do it over and over and over, so that everybody would finally be forced to see it. It's never fun, There's a million examples that we use in the training, over even my lifetime, of people, putting themselves in this kind of danger to make it clear. And that's what we're doing. So it's a little bit different than some of the other groups in the United States and, in Britain. And we love all these women. We are completely on side with what they are doing. They have every right to demand that the police keep them safe. They have every right to be out in Speaker's Corner doing what they're doing. And I'm, all power to them. That's great. But what we're doing is slightly different.
And we would love to
escalate it a little bit further, because we don't feel like we have a choice about it.
Yeah. And to Lierre's point about how we don't have a choice, WDI is we try to have these public conversations. Like Kara has attempted to be on panels with people who disagree with her on this. And what generally ends up happening is that the other side, the trans rights activist side, just ends up pulling out, because they don't want to debate her publicly. They don't want to have a conversation like this.
It all falls apart. When people hear what they actually believe, it all falls apart. That's why the violence is their only solution.
Only option. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we would like to be just having normal conversations, but it's not possible for us.
I feel
we'll say that to the people who come at us. Like, can we just talk? Are you willing to talk? I will sit here and talk with you for as many hours as you want. I'm happy to hear where you're coming from. You can hear from me. It's how democracy is supposed to work. We use our words. We don't kill each other, because those are the options in human society. We listen to each other. We make decisions together. We're not always happy with it, but it's called democracy. We have to do it because the other option is we go back to killing each other. And I just think talking is a better option.
Can I ask, is the group women only, or can
It
men
is,
join?
yeah.
It is women only.
Yeah,
Okay.
so Women's Declaration International is, so anyone can sign the declaration. Let me go back and talk about that a little bit. So,
Sure.
The Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights, it reaffirms the sex-based rights of women as set out in the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, which is CEDAW, this UN document. So that includes affirming the rights of motherhood as a female status, the right of women and girls to physical and reproductive integrity, their right to sports, the need to end violence against women and girls, and our freedom of opinion, expression, peaceful assembly, and political participation. So that those are the main tenets of it. And it has about 37,000 signatures from 160 countries. In the U.S., we have about 6,000 signatories, so we really want to increase those numbers. And anyone can sign the declaration, and anyone can donate. So we would definitely ask that you do that. But we do ask that all of the volunteers are women, as well as the board and the committees and so forth.
And can I ask you about you've spoken a little bit about the training that you give to if first of all can anyone join if they're a woman obviously and how do you go about training people for these actions?
Do you want to talk, Irene, or you want me to go through it?
Yeah. So as it currently stands, you do have to be a WDI USA volunteer to participate in a training, or else have been vetted otherwise. So yeah.
Right.
But,
so it's quite people can't just turn up, or can they?
Right.
Wow.
No, because it's a serious endeavor.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, we're really looking at, I mean, it's been 12 years for me of facing these men down, and I've seen the hatred in their eyes. I know how much some of them would honestly enjoy killing us. I don't ever want it to get to that point. I really don't. It's horrendous to even think about it. It's just like horrible that anybody even has to say that sentence out loud. But it's serious, and women here have gotten seriously injured. And I'm speaking here of April Morrow, whose hand was crushed by this horrible young man who went out of his way to permanently wreck her hand. She will never have full use of her hand because he crushed it. And there's an ongoing court case about that. But so we've had permanent injuries already in the United States.
Yeah.
So we want everybody to understand before they come that this is very serious and it's not for everyone. And it doesn't have to be for everyone. Like whatever the thing is you want to do, I beg you to do it. It doesn't have to be this. But
Yeah,
some of
sure.
us really, we understand that we are up, this is what we're up against. And the direct confrontations of power, whether we want it to be that or not, it is. Every time we go out on the street, this is what we face. Every time we just have a regular old public event of education, we're going to explain what we think, the kinds of things that we used to be able to do in America. This is what we're up against.
Yeah.
And I think it's great if women want to, make that barricade of police and keep themselves safe and try to have those events. I think that's great. But I think the bigger problem is that we are doing a direct confrontation with power every time. We shouldn't have to have a barricade of police, and we want the public to understand how bad this is. The moment that they see it, they're on our side. The normies are with us, and all the polling shows that the support for this ideology is absolutely tanking. My group Wolf just did another public poll, and it's amazing. The last 2 years, 20% the support for this has dropped. People are finally seeing how bad it is, mostly because they've got somebody who's involved. They've seen what's happened to women's sports because they've got a daughter who wants to swim. They've got a young child now who's getting, dragged into this cult-like level online of deciding they're in the wrong body. They've got a friend in prison or something, and they see the horrors of putting the men in the women's prison. Everyone is now affected. And the more that they see how bad it is, the more that it's exposed for what it is. So we are hoping with doing our direct actions that it's helping to expose more of this, that we are indeed laying the violence of this ideology bare for the public to see. But yes, it's not an easy thing, and we want everybody to understand the seriousness of it, and that it is always okay to decide you don't want to go through with it. We've had women at the last minute say, I can't do it, and it is perfectly fine. That's
Yeah.
great. You stay home and, take care of the Airbnb and like get ready to call the police and do all the support work that we all need. Call our loved ones if we end up hurt. There's so much support that goes into doing these kinds of actions.
And
So it's
WTI,
really whatever you want to do.
That
yeah.
that kind of reassures me, because I was worried about I was worried about asking how women can join, because it almost feels like you're volunteering to be hurt, which
Well, let me clarify that WDI has many strategies in its advocacy. I mean, we do state and national legislative advocacy and different kinds of law and policy work and media work. And NVDA is by no means the only the only way to get involved.
right.
And like Lierre was saying, even if you go through the whole training, you don't have to participate, and there are many ways to support actions even without being like on the front lines.
Well, that reassures me a bit. I won't feel quite so guilty by promoting your incredible group. Is there anything else before we go? Anything we can kind of get the viewers to share and spread? I'm hoping that once we finish this, you'll send me an email with any details that I can share under the video. But is there anything else that you'd like to cover before we sign off?
I want to make one more point, which is that in the United States, we have yet to have the breakthrough in the media that has happened in some of the other countries. So the legacy media, the left-leaning kind of liberal media, they just refuse to even acknowledge this as an issue. And that's the other reason I think some of us feel that we do need to escalate to these, more scary tactics. We're just not getting through to them. So we're just going to have to keep going until finally there is a national conversation about this. Because right now on the left, you will still hear from people, oh, this isn't true. It's a right wing, it's a right wing boogeyman, or, it's a right wing conspiracy theory. It's like, no, let me explain to you. This is really happening. There are actually men in women's prisons. My group is suing the state of California. That's how real it is for putting men in women's prisons. Okay, it's happening, but it can't be as bad as you say. And, bit by bit, you can do that sort of one-on-one education. But on a national level, they will not touch it. Yeah. And so until they're willing to do that, we're going to keep doing this. But in the meantime, we do have workarounds. So I'm begging anyone who's listening, if you are at all sympathetic to what we're trying to do and what women are going through and how horrible this ideology is across the board, to children, to lesbians, to women in prison, to whoever, spread the word about what happened in Portland, what happened in Oakland, all of the footage that we have, how violent these men are. Just spread it around, whatever medium you have, whatever access to social media. If you've got a podcast, if you just have a Substack, if you have a Twitter page, whatever you've got, please just spread the word. It's the only way that we can do a workaround at this point from the vast silence of the legacy media.
Well, I hope it doesn't take someone getting hurt to make that happen. Irene, anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Yeah, I echo what Lierre was saying. It would be great if everyone who has any kind of platform could share the footage from Portland and share what we're trying to do. And again, please, if you haven't already, please sign the declaration. I assume this will be in kind of in the description later, if possible.
Yes, please send me anything that you need done. Yeah, great. Okay, well.
Oh, sorry, I was going to keep going.
No, sorry, Irene, go ahead.
Become a volunteer if you can. I'll put the email address if you want to reach out. But we really need more women to make these actions effective, because we're very spread out across this big country, and we really need to train more women and teach them that they really do have more power than they think. Like Lierre always talks about. He only has power because we give it to them, and we can withdraw that. And I think it's really, I hate to use the word empowering because it's been so misused, but it really is empowering to participate in these events. It's been the best thing I've ever done. And I really want to be a part of teaching women that they can be a lot more courageous than they think they can. I for one am not, I'm very risk averse actually, but I've learned how to do this, and you really can learn. And so that's what I want to leave people.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, the next action you do, please let me know in plenty of time, and I will try and draw as much attention to it as my little Twitter account can do, my shadow ban Twitter account, or any other means I have to promote it, because I really think that some extra numbers would be very good for you. If you're being outnumbered at the moment by 1 to 4, we've lost
Somehow.
lost Irene. Might be an internet connection, but oh, she's back. Here we go.
Sorry.
Hello, Irene. She'll hopefully be with us in a sec. But yeah, anything I could do, just let me know, and we will make sure that if like, oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you're being outnumbered 4 to 1, then we really only need to get we don't really need to get that many more people to get to bolster the numbers. So let's try and do it for the next time, and at least
That's right.
At least it'll be harder to for them to gang up on you. Irene and Lierre, I have so much admiration. You're both heroes. I feel almost guilty saying keep it up, because you just blow me away, and I really don't want anything to happen to you guys. But keep it up, and keep checking in, and we'll see you again soon, hopefully.
Yes, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much, Graham.
Hang around for a sec. I'll just say goodbye to everyone, and then I'll be with you. But thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it. Right. Yes, that's it. I may do a few more of these one-on-ones, because I've been kind of lax in them recently, and there's lots of interesting stories out there. But yeah, can you imagine the bravery it takes to do what they're doing? And I think that if anyone's watching this and feels inspired to join them, just remember what they said. You can be as involved as you can safely be. You don't have to be on the front line. You can be working support. So just join them, and worry about what happens later, But for the moment, I salute them. Their bravery is an absolute inspiration. So thank you, and I'll see you soon.